What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Chris, and this is your quick beginner's guide to Age of Wonders 3. In this guide, I'm going to try to quickly go over everything that you really need to know to get started in the game, from the basics of the resources into what exactly your domain is, and then also into just some quick tips and little things that you probably would discover ways into the game that I think will be pretty helpful for you guys. So let's go ahead and just jump right on in. As you can see, I'm playing as a human theocrat, customized to my own liking. Now, the first thing you're going to notice when you start out is that you're going to have these little pop-ups here. So the first two are just telling me that I have to defeat all of the rival empires, which just basically means conquer the world. And then it's also telling me that I can do it with an allied victory if I so chose. This other one is telling me to protect my leader and my throne city. So my leader is this general right here, this beautiful son of a bitch with that wonderful beard of his. And he is my empire's leader, and this city he's sitting on is my throne. You'll see it says Throne of Christoph. So basically, the way that you would lose in this game is if both your leader and your throne city, or I should say, your leader's dead and your throne city is taken from you. When your leader dies, if you still own your throne city, he'll reappear there, or she'll reappear there as well. Within 3 turns, and within those 3 turns you won't be able to do any research, so you don't really want to lose them, but at least they'll come back nice and safe in your throne city. If you lose your throne city but still have your leader, then you're still able to fight on and hopefully recapture it later. You can always move your throne city to other cities if you'd like to. That is always an option. So yeah, don't lose your leader and don't lose your throne. Pretty easy stuff. Before we get into these other two here, though, I want to go ahead and talk about the currencies in the game. You have gold, mana, knowledge points, and casting points. Your gold is going to be used for all your units and city upgrades. You can also see that I have 300 in my pool, and I have an income of 43. That means if I don't spend any gold this turn, then I will have 343 gold next turn. So that's how it works. That's not telling me that's how much gold I'm going to have next turn, which some games do. Our income, for mana, we have 50 and 22 income. Mana is going to be used mainly for when you cast spells, but there are certain units that will have a mana upkeep cost, just like there's a gold upkeep cost for all your units. Some of them will have a mana upkeep cost. You're going to use this. This is one of the 2 different kinds of resources you're going to have to use to cast spells. So this one is, honestly, you're not going to be restricted all that much by mana. At least I haven't found really there being any limit to my ability to cast spells, at least not for mana. The next one's going to be knowledge points. Knowledge points is basically going to be research points. We'll go on and get into research after I'm done explaining casting points. But yes, just note that you don't ever get a pool of these unless you find scrolls of knowledge on the ground, which you can pick up through exploring. But these, if you don't use all your knowledge points in a turn, then they just go wasted. And then last but not least, we have casting points. Now, casting points is going to limit how many spells you can cast per turn. So basically, your mana is turned into casting points. As long as you have mana, you'll have casting points, which pretty much means you'll always have casting points. And that'll basically, in turn, mean that you'll be able to cast spells. If this was 100 out of 100, that means that I could use, if I use it all in one turn, the next turn, I would have 100 out of 100 casting points, okay? So let's go ahead and let's touch on research, skills, and spells right here. So you can get to your research either clicking through that little panel there, or you can get it when you click here. So you see I have a bunch of different ones. I am a theocrat. I have the expanders specialty, and then I also have a mastery in creation. So I'm gonna go ahead and look at the cherub here. Cherub is one of the first unit that you can get as a theocrat. You can see with the little drop down that it has a casting cost. So if I were to try to cast the cherub's going to cost me 40 mana, and it's going to cost me an additional 40 casting points. And due to that additional casting points, it's going to take 2 turns to cast. Now, it says 1 turn, but that's counting this turn. So it's going to take all my casting points of this turn and the casting points of next turn to be able to cast this. So then once my cherubs are summoned, it'll cost me 6 mana to use. I think it's pretty straightforward. On the very bottom, you'll see the research cost is 60 knowledge, and it's going to take 3 turns to do it. That's because my income of knowledge points is only 20. If my income of knowledge points was 30, then it would only take 2 turns. But if it was 40 and I still needed 60 knowledge, then it would still be 2 turns. Pretty simple stuff. And then, of course, you can see that once I'm done researching the cherubs, it'll allow me to unlock the research for the martyr. So that's kind of your basic gist. Again, you can look at your spells. I can mark him as heretic. You'll see that it says 20 casting points, yada, yada, yada. So I could go over to this guy. and I could cast these guys as heretics. So basically all my devout units will now do +3 damage against them, which is very good. We also see I'm out of casting points and it used some of my mana. So pretty easy to understand stuff. Next up, let's go ahead and look at the hero. So you're always going to be offered a hero at the very beginning of the game. You have your leader, but you don't have a hero. Well, I mean, he's basically a hero, but you don't have a separate hero. And so you're always going to be offered one at the very beginning of the game. They're always level 1, and they're always going to cost 100 gold, but they're different races, and they are different classes. So basically what I would suggest to you, there's a lot of pros. The pros of accepting this is going to be that you're going to have another guy to lead your army. He's going to be able to have different spells. He might even have certain spells that can affect your entire empire, or the entire army that you're in. He's also going to be able to explore the map a lot easier. He's on a mount. You have plenty of different pros. The cons is really just going to be that it's going to increase in upkeep cost, and of course it's going to cost you 100 gold right out of the bat, which is quite a lot in the beginning when most of your buildings are costing at least 100 gold. You're basically talking about a whole building. So let's go ahead and talk about why you wouldn't accept it, though. The biggest reason, and the only real reason I can think of in my head why I wouldn't accept it right off the bat, is their class. If their class doesn't seem to mesh with the rest of my empire, which is based on my leader, then I don't know if it's going to work very well. So he's a sorcerer. That's going to work fantastic with my leader, because it's going to increase casting points. He's going to have a lot of great offensive and protection abilities. He's going to be just kind of like a slightly more offensive version of a theocrat. So that's going to work out very well for me and my empire. The downside would be if, say, it was like an archdruid or a dreadnought. As a theocrat, a lot of my spells are going to benefit humanoid or actually living beings, whereas say a archdruid is going to have a lot of stuff that affects animals and beasts and stuff, and the dreadnought's going to have a lot of stuff that affects machinery and stuff. And as a theocrat, I believe there's only one unit I have that I can recruit that is a machine, and that's my top tier unit. So having their spells that benefit machines and stuff, that isn't going to be very good for me. So let's just go ahead and accept him as a sorcerer. We'll use him to explore later on. Moving into general buildings. Looking at your buildings, your cities will always produce merchandise. This is why your cities are going to be more valuable than forts. We'll go into the differences later on. It's just that they're always going to produce some kind of gold. As your cities expand here with your population, then your domain will grow by 1 hex out, and so you'll start to be able to capture more of these nodes under your domain, which will be very, very nice. You also can see that if I grab a unit to be produced, then immediately the merchandise goes away, and if I get rid of it, the merchandise comes back. So you're always going to be producing something in your cities of value. Now, what would I produce right out of the gate? My biggest suggestion to you guys is to rush a builder's hall. A builder's hall is going to allow you to have increased production. They're going to allow you to get stone walls faster. It's going to allow you to have settlers and builders, and that's just, all those things are great in the beginning. The biggest thing, though, for me is the production. So cities have a certain production rate, and you can see the total here. And the production rate that the builder hall gives you is 20. And that's going to turn these units from taking 2 turns, and these are low tier units, taking 2 turns to recruit, to taking 1 turn to recruit. So it's going to help you get your units out faster. And of course, war hall and laboratory, other units I find absolutely necessary at the beginning, are going to be, I think war hall only takes 3 turns, and the laboratory only takes 3 or 2 turns after building the builder's hall. So I always build the builder's hall, and then right afterwards, as you can see, it unlocks a research for the siege workshop. I almost always rush that next as well, just because that adds another, I believe, 20 production. So that is great production value to have. You're going to be, in the beginning, it's very peaceful for yourself. You're not going to be a whole lot of combat going on necessarily in the beginning, at least not to where you're going to be losing your main city. So it's going to be really nice to be able to have that extra production to just speed up everything else. So the other thing that I want to touch on with the builders halls also gives you access to builders and settlers. Builders are going to be a unit that can build forts, and they don't just build one fort, but you can constantly move them around. They can build one fort, one fort, one fort, one fort, so just keep building them around. Whereas settlers, they settle cities, but the settlers are going to be one-time use. So a fort is going to basically just be empty fortification. They're not going to have any ability to build any buildings. You can't get any citizens there. Basically, they're just a place to defend. And if you try to get, if you leave it empty then people are going to be able to take it from you. So if you don't have any units there, then it's basically just an empty shell. The one thing forts do grant is an area of domain around. So if you have any nodes around there that don't have any beasts on it that you've already explored, then you're going to be able to capture them into your domain and use their increase to your revenue streams and income. The difference for the settlers, though, is that they settle cities. Cities are going to allow you, again, you're going to be able to get merchandise. You're going to be able to have a population that can grow in domain. They can do all these great things. You can build buildings, produce units. But the problem with settlers is that they start out, when they first start out, their cities are completely unprotected. There's no walls. So a little tip that I'll give you guys is that if you build a fort and then you take a settler of some kind and you put them in the fort, then when the city is done being settled next turn, then your city will automatically start with walls. Nifty little trick. So I would, again, rush the builder's hall so you can get a builder, start expanding your domain, which you can do whenever you feel like you've cleared out enough useful nodes, and start building some forts and have that extra income to do it for. The other thing that I want to note about this, lastly, before I move on to anything else, is that the builders and settlers that you get are going to be based off of the kind of population that you have for the city that you recruit them in. So this is a human village, so they're going to be human settlers and human builders. If they were orc or elven, then they would be orc or elven settlers and builders. So keep that in mind. Now, the next thing, and probably the last thing I'm really going to touch on that you guys should learn, is that exploring, especially in the beginning, is vitally important to getting yourself a great start. You just want to constantly explore in the beginning. So for myself, getting that cherub, I can then summon a cherub and he can go fly around and explore for me as well. And I'll explain why. You get little things like this. So when I go here to this refugee camp, he'll explore this refugee camp, and bam, I'll immediately gain 884 population to my city. So now my city is going to grow, I think, 2 turns faster than it was before. So that's going to be a nice little benefit. And there's going to be plenty of these little things out here that are going to help me explore. Look, I just found that there's bandits nearby that could possibly raid my city. And then just continuing to explore, you can go in all manner of different directions and just see what's what, where everything's at. And you can just go on, and hopefully you can find, so we see that there's going to be an independent nation up here that hopefully I can get some diplomacy going with. I can also go over here and grab some gold. So immediately I've just gained 59 gold, and I've also increased my population. So my city is looking quite good. I've got a cartographer's camp over here. If I were to get over here, then I would be able to see more of the world. It would point out a little part of the world for me to see. And then I could go over here to the hasteberries and allow me to refresh my movement and keep going even farther. So exploring is going to be a really great thing. You can see I pretty much doubled or tripled my view just by sending guys in every which direction and exploring out there. You're going to find a bunch of these different treasures, and they're not going to last for very long, especially going against human players or AI players. They're just going to go and try to pick them up as fast as possible. So you want to make sure that you can get as much of that advantage on your side as you possibly can. Alright, so I think that kind of sums up just about everything. Make sure that you're always expanding your domain as far and as wide as possible, but make sure that you're doing it with nodes. You don't have to have a connected domain for it all to work. You just need to have them over important functionaries like these different nodes that you've already conquered. And then, again, of course, try out different races, try out different classes, and just see which one fits you. If you're not really enjoying the game, just try out different classes, try out different races. They honestly do play pretty differently. I really don't care for the dwarves a whole lot. I know a lot of people do, but there's not my cup of tea. So try out different things. I absolutely love the game now that I've given it a real good go for its money. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully this guide will help you out and give you a little bit of encouragement. It won't be so daunting getting into this kind of game. And if you enjoyed this, please don't forget to like, share, favorite, and subscribe. My name is Chris, and I'll see you guys soon.